all TMNT fans out there, did you ever think you'd see Pizza Face in an actual TMNT game? Well, he is here in all of his glory. Welcome to the Uncle's Channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's do a quick little review of the new TMNT Dimension Shellshock DLC that has just recently come out. Now, this game here is an expansion of Shredder's Revenge, which was already a fantastic game in its own right. It was sort of a love letter to TMNT fans as far as like video games go, as far as like the 87 series. And this new DLC that just came out is even more of a love letter to fans as far as like giving them extra characters, extra sprites, extra levels, extra Easter eggs, and even like its own individual game mode. But let's go ahead and dive into everything that this new DLC is offering players. Now, first off, when you load the game up here, you're not going to see a Dimension Shellshock option on the menu here. You're going to see an option for survival mode, which is going to be Dimension Shellshock. I personally think they should have like labeled it that, but you know, that's a very minor complaint. But when you load it up here, you can choose pretty much any of the characters from the original game, but now you have two brand new characters. You have Usagi as well as Karai that you can play as, and both these are pretty powerful characters. Personally, I think Karai is probably a little bit more powerful than Usagi, but I like the look of Usagi more because, I don't know, I had the action figure growing up. I've always been a big fan of him. And so it's cool to see him inside the game here. And you can also play as those characters like in the main game itself. We're looking at particularly Dimension Shellshock here. But then when you select your character, you're given a quick little story here for what Dimension Shellshock is all about. And the story is really pretty basic. The neutrinos are coming to you because Shredder is stealing all of their crystals that they need for energy source. And you're going to travel through all these different dimensions to retrieve these crystals back. And once you get all the crystals back, of course, you've beaten the survival mode or Dimension Shellshock. And I can't say it's like my favorite story, but it is at least opening the door for why we are traveling between all of these dimensions and gives us some of a purpose for the survival mode rather than just simply fight off hordes and hordes of enemies that are going to continue to approach you. But then you're thrown into your very first dimension here, and your first dimension is going to vary depending on playthrough because everything is randomized. Enemies are randomized, bosses are randomized, levels are randomized, the crystals or the power-ups at the end are randomized. Everything in this particular game mode is going to be randomized, which does allow for more replayability. But then all the enemies on the screen are going to try to attack you. You kill off all the enemies, and you've beaten the first, stage of this particular dimension. And you are given two choices at the close of the stage. And one choice is going to be like a power-up, and the other choice may also be a power-up, but it might actually just simply be crystals that you can collect. And you're going to see a crystal bar at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and when that bar reaches all the way to the max, you've beaten this particular dimension, and you'll be teleported to the next dimension, which will be an up in difficulty level. And once you go through 5 dimensions of collecting crystals and filling those bars all the way up, then you get to fight the final boss inside the game. And so your goal here is, of course, going to be collect as many crystals as possible. However, as you're going through the game, like you're going to get pretty weak as you go. You're going to lose some of your life. You're going to want some power-ups. You're going to want some invincibility, things like that. And that's where the other option is going to come into play at the close of every single stage that you fight. You might get a power-up to become like a bad guy in the game, like Bebop or Shredder. You might get a power-up to have an unlimited radical mode. You might get a power-up to have extra pizza slices. I mean, there's just so many power-ups that you can choose from. And sometimes you're not like really sure like what power-ups that you're choosing. And you sort of have to, give it trial and error. But like all of them are good power-ups. None of them are going to be like trick power-ups and you get like a bad or a disadvantage in the game. So everything you get is going to be a plus. You sort of have to decide, do you want a power-up or do you want crystals in order to try to continue to advance the game. Now the concept here makes it sound like it's pretty darn easy. You simply fight off the hordes of enemies, get power-ups, get crystals, win the game. However, this is actually a lot more difficult than it leads on to be because the very first time I loaded up, I got through like the first dimension and like part of the second dimension, and I died pretty quick. And it's like, how am I supposed to go through 5 complete dimensions when I can barely get through like 1.5 here? And it really boiled down to is because you only have 1 life to go through the survival mode. And that's just simply not enough. Even with all the power-ups, all the extra pizzas and all that, you're still not going to have enough power to make it through 5 dimensions. And so in order to get more lives, you have to simply complete dimensions. Every time you complete a dimension, even if you don't make it all the way to the 5th one, you actually get like an extra little bonus permanent power-up on that particular character. So like I was playing a Splinter here, and when I died, I got through 2 dimensions, so I got 2 extra lives. So every time you finish a dimension, you're going to get a permanent power-up on a particular character, which is going to make your next run all that much easier to try to get through all 5 dimensions. And the rewards for completing the dimension aren't always just simply a extra life. Sometimes you get like, different sprites you can use, like an unlocked Mirage Splinter or like the original 8-bit NES Splinter. And so there's some cool little, Easter eggs that you can unlock inside the game, and it really adds a reason to actually go back and replay this multiple times through, because you're going to want to unlock all the skins for all the characters, max them all out, get all the individual crystals here. I mean, this adds a significant number of hours to the actual gameplay of the game. However, even though this gameplay itself is like a great deal of fun, and I'll probably end up playing the survival mode or Dimension Shellshock more than the actual story mode from here on out, just because it's so easy to pick up, play through, you know, see how far you can get. It's fairly addictive. But the real, like, I guess, a joy of Dimension Shellshock, at least for the first time going through it here, is just simply seeing how many Easter eggs, once again, they have crammed into this little bitty TMNT game. That's something I loved about the original Shredder's Revenge. How many, like, you know, odes to fans they put inside the game, and they did the same thing here inside Dimension Shellshock. Like I already mentioned, they put Pizza Face in the 8-bit part, and I never thought I'd see Pizza Face in like an actual TMNT game. He was always an action figure. I don't think he was ever in the show. He was ever in like any, you know, pretty much anything TMNT. He was just an action figure. And you know, weird looking one at that, but he's inside the game. You also have a lot of other ones. You have like Curly, the giant cow head in the background. He's inside the game. You got Mondo Gecko back there. You got Ray Fillet back there. You got Screw Loose floating around at one point. You have a mutant cat, which I presume is probably Scratch. Didn't really look like Scratch, so I'm not positive. But still, like, how many mutant cats are there in TMNT? So we'll go ahead and say this fella here is Scratch. But there is so much stuff like crammed into the background. I'm not going to go through all of them, and I already mentioned a lot of them in the preview videos for Dimension Shellshock, but they have crammed so much stuff into the background, and I just love it. And also like Easter eggs as far as like the levels themselves. You have like the Mirage level, like you're fighting through an old-timey TMNT black and white cartoon. You have the 8-bit dimension, which is going to be like fighting through an old NES game, including like old NES music, which is like truly awesome. You have another level is going to be like fighting, I think it's like Omni Channel 6, with like a futuristic level. And there's so much. Oh, and you also have Edo, which is going to be where Usagi's from. And there's so much cool stuff as far as like things hidden in the background to bring these levels to life that really just, I don't know, it's just a love letter to TMNT fans of sort of like all generations, whether you're part of the 87 generation, the 2003 generation, the comic book generation. I mean, they really try to pull all kinds of stuff into this game. Yes, it still focuses on like an overarching 87 style, but they're trying to bring in a lot of different aspects of all the different iterations of TMNT to sort of give everybody a little something to look forward to, at least when it comes to Easter eggs. Now, DLC is only like $7.99. I think it's on sale right now for like $7.19, so you save like, I don't know, like 80 cents. I mean, not a huge deal, but it's something. But regardless, like, is it worth the $7.99? In my opinion, absolutely. If you're a TMNT fan, you're going to just love seeing all the little Easter eggs they've just jam-packed DLC through. The DLC itself is honestly a really fun game mode. You can play online. I actually ended up playing a majority of my footage here online. I just play with some strangers, and I'm telling you, it's just a blast. It's a fun little extra game mode they've added in here that has way more replayability than I really ever expected it would. Ton of collectibles, ton of unlockables, nothing hidden behind like a paywall, nothing like that. You truly earn every single little bonus, every single little extra sprite that you get, and it makes you feel all that much better for actually getting it. Honestly, this is probably one of the best parts of the Shredder's Revenge game now, and if you're a TMNT fan, or even if you're not, if you just enjoyed beat 'em up games with Shredder's Revenge, I personally think the Dimension Shellshock is definitely worth the money. But what do you all think? Do you enjoy Dimension Shellshock? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out other videos listed up above. And just go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.